celebrity experiences series. So if you're not familiar, it's exactly what it sounds like. I'm just going to be rambling to you about various encounters I've had with famous people. And like I said, there are 2 preceding parts. So if you haven't watched parts 1 and 2 already, and you think this is something you may enjoy, I encourage you to go back and watch those as well. I'll link them below. However, this is in no particular order, so you don't need to have watched the first 2 parts. friends just fucking around, just having a really good time together, having some beers and some pizza. Oh, and I sat on a plane once with Jimmy Smits. He's in a lot of things, but most recently was in the Heights. And like people of my parents' generation know him really well and like him a lot. So one of my friends' moms was really excited when I was like, yeah, I sat next to him for an entire plane ride, and he had his hat down low. He really didn't want to be recognized or to have any, I don't know, unwanted interactions, but was very polite to the flight attendants, to everyone with whom he interacted, but definitely lying low. So, okay, so yes, those are all just examples of seeing people around. Oh, and I actually saw Shirley Manson of Garbage. Oh, I love her so much. And I saw, sorry, that was really sharp S. I love her so much. And I saw her walking around Amsterdam a few years ago. And I, did a double take, and I thought maybe it was just someone who looked uncannily like her because she didn't have her signature red-orange hair, like her signature fire engine red hair. But later I looked up recent pictures of her and saw that she'd dyed her hair pink, 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 and that confirmed it, that it was indeed Shirley Manson, and that was very exciting. And then I saw her months later at a movie theater in Los Angeles, and my friends watched me like pantomime having a little heart attack, not like in front of her, not to bother her, but as she walked away, out of her eye line, because I was just bowled over. What kismet to be in the same place as Shirley Manson twice in life, without without being at a concert or something planned. Yeah, I mean, on some level I kind of want to have my best friend on here at some point as a guest whisperer, guest rambler, if you will, to tell you some stories about some of these experiences they've had, because some of them are so good. So, if that's something that interests you, maybe that can be arranged. They're just so good. Brothers concert. And I don't know where he got the impression that I would want to go to that. I guess maybe I liked them a few years ago. You know, I was into them as a teenager, but I outgrew it, and I just think they're so goofy. Like, I can't stand the Jonas Brothers. It's so embarrassing. And I had to go to that concert, and it was mortifying. I'm so embarrassed that I've been to a Jonas Brothers concert as an adult, like just going off. And a few assistants, things like that. We were just kind of walking around backstage, I guess trying to find somewhere to land, and then, making our way towards the theater itself. But yeah, I got to kind of watch him in this more intimate capacity for, an hour or so. Really nice, really chill, just seemed like a really good dude. Yeah, that's just a kind of mini one. I don't have too much to say. We didn't interact in person, but again, he was in my group, so I feel like it walks that line between a non-experience, like just seeing someone, and a more interpersonal experience. Like, I got to see him interact with my friends and help them out of a tight spot. So I just think those things do say a lot about someone, especially when a celebrity will drop what they're doing and, I don't know, drop what they're doing and come try to give people their money's worth. I mean, of course, I know he got paid and he got to do a set, but like, he didn't need to do that, so clearly it was just clear he was doing it as a favor, so that people weren't disappointed and my friends didn't look bad. Matthew McCoy from How to Get Away with Murder and Orange is the New Black. Not a lot to say here either. He was in some of my anti-racist groups and super nice. Just a really nice person. Like, I got to just listen to him speak, listen to him share, in dialogue settings. He showed up a lot for stuff in general. Whenever he could, whenever he wasn't working, he showed up for a lot of stuff. Yeah, he was really involved in that work, in that community work around Los Angeles. Yeah, that's it. Really nice. Okay, so I'm gonna pause for a moment because my neighbors are getting loud, and then I'm gonna come back and give you my two final stories. Okay. Hello again. Sorry if this setup has changed ever so slightly. Sometimes I have to unmount my phone to check that footage has saved properly, and then things aren't exactly the same when I put it back and start filming again. So my second to last, my penultimate story, it's one some of you have heard before, but I just can't believe it didn't even occur to me to include in celebrity experiences. Katherine Hepburn, Hollywood icon. She was a family friend, not so much so that I feel silly including her in like celebrity encounters. We still knew her in a limited capacity, but like, I never met her. I don't think I did. No, she was dead. Sorry, that's grim, but yeah, I never met her. But I've seen, things she left to my family, to my grandmother in particular. My grandmother was painting on a beach in New England. She was a really good painter, and she just enjoyed to do that, to take an easel out onto the sand and paint. So she was painting in the surf, like the water was coming up around her ankles, ever so slightly, not enough to endanger her canvas, her easel, or where she sent her with a little personalized note, among other gifts, because obviously giving people your memoir is kind of a move, but there were other things as well. So yeah, that was a really lovely thing. Okay, last story. Samuel L. Jackson. This is one of my best stories. I really wanted to make a point to all these people were coming over to talk to me, and we were having these very friendly, happy conversations right next to him. So he started to like look over at me a little bit in this way of like, I don't know, it just happened that like, I don't know, it drew attention to the fact that I was leaving him alone, and I was getting this attention from, you know, friends, from nail technicians I know very well, but had like 3 people, and then the owner like come over and chat with me, but kind of leave him alone. So it became an interesting, like a subversion. It was just like kind of funny, and you could tell it piqued his curiosity, where he was like, it became clear to him that I wasn't gonna hassle him. And then I think that became kind of funny in a way, because it's Samuel L. fucking Jackson. So like, he must be really used to being hassled. And yeah, so I just got to have my appointment while he had his for about 45 minutes, and I didn't say a word to him, but I caught up with my nail technician, and at one point, like in lulls, or when his technician would get up to get things, I could feel him listening to my conversation. And that all would have been that, except for the fact that when I got up to pay and I went to the desk and I was saying goodbye, he turned in his seat. There were like stools. He turned in his seat with his legs splayed apart and crossed his arms and had his head back, and he looked right at me, and he made this face approximately. And it felt very much like a, I know you know who I am. Like it was like a reprimand. It's so funny, it's so hard to explain, and I talked to my nail technician about it after, but it felt like it was like, I see what you did there. Like, I know you know who I am, and I know you were dying to talk to me. Like, I feel like I was meant to have said something to him by the end, but I didn't want to bother him, and he just gave me such a, like, the look confirmed everything that I thought had been happening when people were coming over to talk to me, and he was like, what's going on? Like, I'm Samuel L. Jackson, and who is this person next to me that is getting so much more attention than I am? But again, it was just by virtue, by way of if you're able to figure out about whom I'm speaking, who's been omitted, and you're able to figure out that I had a negative experience with this person, please do me a favor, just keep that information to yourself. You know, and I know about whom I speak, but I did intentionally leave it out of this ramble, so I would appreciate us just leaving it at that, if that's okay. What I do want to know, I'm very curious, it should have been a check-in question, but I'm gonna ask you now, who are your celebrity crushes? Do you have any celebrity crushes? If so, please comment below, let me know who they are. And for my Arrow viewers and my Ace viewers, please, I encourage you to interpret this question however feels true for you. So maybe just celebrities you think are, beautiful, attractive, hot, but maybe it doesn't feel quite like a crush. A celebrity you'd like to marry, a celebrity with whom you'd like to be best friends. I don't know, just someone onto whom you've projected something aspirational. Maybe you just really admire them. Yeah, take it and run with it. I know I'm using this kind of buzz term, these buzzwords, celebrity crush,